From the News Channel 5 Network, this is Inside Politics.
Hello, everyone. I'm News Channel 5's political analyst Pat Nolan. Welcome to Inside Politics. This week on the show, we've asked two of our best political analysts, Democrat Larry Woods and Republican Chip Saltsman, to join us. We'll ask them to assess where we are in the 2020 elections as they approach and the virus rages. From our suddenly red-hot Tennessee GOP U.S. Senate race to the continuing court battle in the state over absentee voting by mail-in. And we'll also analyze all of that along with the national scene with the upcoming national political conventions and the presidential race. Gentlemen, thank you both for joining us again this week.
Good to be here.
Chip, the U.S. Senate race on the Republican side was supposed to be a walkover for former Ambassador to Japan Bill Hagerty. Some polling indicates it's a very close race now. Does Manny Sethi really have a chance to win this primary?
Oh, sure. And it is, I think it's a race that everybody expected to get close at the end. They always do. Very rarely do you have big blowouts anymore in Republican primaries. And you got to give a lot of credit to Manny Sethi. He's worked hard. He's told a good story. He's kind of done. He's put in the work. And now he's sitting 2 weeks before the election, and it's going to be a photo finish in about 2 weeks.
Larry, the best way to assess a race if it's close usually is when the candidates start attacking each other and then the outside PACs join in. We're certainly getting plenty of that, even with the new ads coming on this weekend. Do you think Sethi can pull the upset?
I'd have to say yes, as an outsider, a Democrat watching the Republican primary. Sethi's clearly on a winning glide path to the election day, election voting period, or else Hagerty would not be running all the negative ads. I was like everybody, I think, Pat, up to a couple weeks ago, I just assumed Hagerty was going to win. But when I saw him start the negative ads, I thought, no, you don't do that unless there's some trouble brewing for you.
Chip, Sethi is challenging Hagerty now to a debate. Of course, he's not interested in doing that, but usually the candidate that challenges or asks for a debate is the one that's behind. So is Sethi still perhaps within the margin for error, but not quite ahead?
Yeah, look, all the polling I've seen across the state show it to be a close race. Manny is behind by a couple of points, but he's got a lot of energy going into the race. I think what you're seeing with Hagerty's folks, they're trying to stunt that momentum. They're trying to stop it before people get to the ballot box. And both, I wouldn't say both have run great campaigns for the last year, but both now are fully engaged running the campaigns that they need to run to win. So
Larry,
right now, both campaigns are on the right track.
Larry, with most of the Republican establishment and even President Trump solidly behind Hagerty, why is this race even close?
That's a great question. Again, I assumed with the active endorsement of President Trump that Hagerty would coast to win. That's clearly not happening, easily at least. And the real question in my mind is, will Hagerty now ask President Trump to come to Tennessee to campaign? And if so, will Trump do it?
What about that, Chip? Do you think the president will come here? He's certainly done a lot of endorsements on social media and even did a call-in during some kind of virtual rally for the early voting that came up the other day. But does he need to physically come here? And if he does, how do you physically come and do a rally? What's the photo op? You can't do rallies. You can't shake hands. You can't hug each other. Will you wave at each other at 6 feet?
Yeah, I think really what he's done he did the tele rally, he did the teletown hall, he did the endorsement. I think he's done more than he usually does. I think, quite frankly, the Trump endorsement is still a gold bar in the Republican primary. You always want it. He's like something like 78-1 in Republican primaries. But I think what the campaign did is that endorsement, you want to open with it and you want to close with it. Their whole campaign was a Trump endorsement, and it kind of lost its sizzle along the way after 4 or 5 months of advertisement. And they missed telling the Bill Hagerty story, which is a great story. He pulled himself up from bootstraps, became very successful from Sumner County. He's got a wonderful family and kids and wife. He didn't tell that story. Manny did, and people connected with Manny on a very personal level.
Larry, the national media likes to keep score on this. Chip talked about the tally the president's done about winning primaries. What happens to the president if Hagerty loses? Is that going to be something what is that going to say about his standing in Tennessee? Not that he would lose the state, but maybe some of his base has fallen out of love with him down here?
In the Trump universe, there are no losses. If Hagerty loses, Trump would be out there the next morning talking about, look what a great victory my guy scored in Tennessee. I mean, that's what Trump's known for. So I think it'll have minimal impact. Who wins will have minimal impact on Trump in the presidential election. Mackler, who's running for the Democratic nomination, obviously the guy that's way behind coming to the general election, is already running ads. I don't think it's going to have much impact on Trump one way or the other.
Chip, the Republicans in the last 2 cycles have built their campaigns around who is the most conservative and who is the most like Donald Trump. Why is that the be-all and end-all, especially when at the end they start attacking each other why the other guy isn't the best or the most conservative? At this really difficult time, wouldn't voters rather see some positive things on the air rather than attacks against each other?
Well, we always say that, but negative ads run for a reason because they work. I think you have to have a right mix. What Larry was talking about with the President Trump, win, lose, or draw, is going to win Tennessee. The polling I've seen is he is still as popular in this state with Republican primary voters he has ever been. I think it's more about the campaigns kind of run the Trump endorsement a little bit too much. I mean, you can run it too much. And the voters wanted something. They want something else. They want to know who you are, what you do, what you're going to do, which speaks to what you're saying. And Haggerty hasn't truly done that. And I don't know if he's got time in 14 days to talk about that. But there's a lot of good stuff there on the Haggerty campaign to talk about. And I think they're beginning to do that a little bit. But Manny's been doing it, and they both support Trump. It's not like one person is running and saying, I don't support Trump. They both say they support the president.
But Larry, on one Republican in this race, George Flynn, who's a perennial candidate, he's actually said some radical things. He actually said that Donald Trump sometimes is wrong and he'd stand up to him when he was wrong. Does Flynn have any kind of chance? He is running some TV.
That I've seen that ad and heard that speech, and it's interesting. I was surprised by it. If I were an independent type voter voting in the Republican primary, that would hold a lot of appeal for me. But I don't think there are that many really independent voters voting in the Republican primary. They're either going to stay home or wait and see what happens in November. So I don't really think he's got a realistic shot at winning that primary.
And I would ask the question, Pat, but I hate to be the moderator for a second. I would ask the question of Pat, when Barack Obama was president, how many people ran for office saying, I'm going to oppose Barack Obama in the Democrat primary? Not many. And if they did, they didn't get elected. So this is pretty normal primary politics as we go into the last 2 weeks here.
Chip Saltsman and Larry Woods, two of our best political analysts, are analyzing what's going on in the 2020 elections in Tennessee, particularly the red-hot U.S. Senate race on the Republican side. Back to continue our conversation after this break.